will forgive their sins and heal their land. This morning, I'd like to have for a thought, heaven is my goal. Heaven is my goal. Heaven is my goal. My final destination in life after this life is heaven. The goal is my final destination or my final purpose, my aim in life. The target in which my life lived is making the attempt to achieve is heaven. The place that I would like to be at the end of my days is heaven. When I open my eyes to the other side, I would like to open my eyes to see Jesus, the one who died for me, in heaven. In my state of sleep, when I wake up, and the trump of God sounds and I wake up, I want to be on my way, on my journey. I want to appear, I want to be in heaven. Heaven is my goal. My purpose for coming into worship is heaven. My purpose for being a good steward is heaven. And my purpose for loving those people who are unlovable is heaven. And my goal for getting up on Sunday mornings after a day of football, basketball, activities of Saturday is heaven. The reason why I break my week up and start the first day of my week, whereby God blesses me throughout the week, is heaven. Heaven is my goal. The end game to my life is heaven. When my life is over, heaven, I would like for it to be my home. Reaching my final destination, I would like to reach heaven. I set goals in life, and I include making plans and doing so by praying to God and using wisdom. But I have an understanding that if I'm humble enough, God himself will move on my behalf and continue my journey on into heaven. Heaven is the place in which I want to wake up. No matter what conditions of life may come my way, heaven is my goal. On this journey of life, there are so many things that happens to us that distracts us, that causes us to stumble, pause, wait. But heaven is my goal. On this journey of life in which we travel, there are so many things that happen to us that cause us to feel like we are set back. But heaven is my goal. I watch how individuals, when in driving, how they speed up and run lights, and they make bad drives, and they pull out in front of you. And I tell my wife all the time, I said, that person has some time to make up. And because we have a destination and we have an intersection, and when those two things meet, then we going home. Now, what home you go to is determined by the life in which you live here on this planet. And so therefore, heaven is my goal. At the end of my days, heaven is where I would like to be. And so therefore, no matter what happens in my life, what may come, heaven is where I want to be. And so therefore, when things happen to cause me to be sad, I can have joy knowing that heaven is my goal. And I heard Jesus when he told me, don't let not your hearts be troubled. If you believe in God, believe also in me. For in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. And I listened to him tell me that because heaven is my goal. And I want you to understand that leaving this earth is not bad when you have a place to go. And so heaven is my goal. And I made that choice a long time ago. And on that choice that I've made, God is the one that sent Jesus to direct me, lead me, guide me into where he wants me to be. So therefore, no matter what it is, no matter what setback happens in my life, my goal doesn't change. No matter what kinds of personalities may come my way, my goal doesn't change. No matter what kind of storms may blow in my life, my goal doesn't change. So I can remember getting married early. My wife and I got married at 18 and 19 years old. And I can remember going back home on a trip, and we had just gotten our first brand new car. We weren't even at that time, probably barely over 21 years old. And we were driving back through Arkansas. And I got tired, and as I got tired, I asked the first lady, I said, would you start driving? Now, this was in the winter. And as she started to drive, I started to fall asleep. And I woke up after sleeping a few minutes, and I looked at the highway, and the highway was shining. And I asked, I said, First Lady, Barbara, is the road shiny? She said, I don't know. Because we both from Mississippi, we don't know anything about cold weather, ice. And she said, I said, slow down. She slowed down, and I said, let me check. I get out, and I could barely stand up because it was so slippery, so icy. And when I started back to driving, and we drove about 100 miles or more on top of nothing but solid ice. But on that journey, what God did was God woke me up out of that deep sleep, that restful, peaceful sleep, and made me aware that something was going on in our life. And so when I started to drive, I didn't turn around because the end goal was to go home. Y'all are hearing what I'm saying? And so because the end goal was to go home, I kept on going in the same direction I was going. The conditions changed, but the goal didn't change. Sometimes in our lives, conditions are changed and it cause us to want to turn and do something totally different. But I want you to understand something, that if your goal is heaven, no matter what happens in front of you, no matter what disasters may be ahead of you, you have to continue on the same journey in which you are traveling, because simply heaven is our goal. And if heaven is our goal, we stop looking at the conditions of life and we watch this, and we begin to travel based on the conditions that are in front of us, but we keep on going in the same direction. What are you saying, Pastor? What I'm saying is, when setbacks happen in our lives, we got to keep on traveling. Well, y'all hear what I'm saying? Because heaven is our go. When things happen to cause us to have setbacks, we have to keep on going. Why? Because heaven is our goal. And so one thing I understand is, sometimes death will cause us to stop, to slow down, to change direction. But I want you to understand that heaven is still your goal. No matter who leaves you, no matter what happens in your life, you still have a goal, and that is heaven. No matter what unfortunate disaster may come your way, heaven is still your goal. I've heard all the things that's happening on the battlefield, and I see how individuals are being displaced, and I see buildings being destroyed. I see people, bodies are lying out on the highways. They're doing the war situation that all of us had the opportunity to see and experience in real life, in real time. And what I see is, as people are going through this tragedy, as people are going through this difficult moment in their lives, then heaven is still their goal. Because the thing I want to understand is, we need to reach heaven. Well, watch this. If we're alive, we're going to be changed. We're going to be, watch this, in the moment twinkling of an eye. And if we die, what God's going to do is, the trump's going to sound, and the dead in Christ are going to get up. Heaven is our goal, no matter what our conditions are. Our goal is still heaven. What I watched is, and the news channels don't cover all the news. I want you to understand something. We don't get to see everything. And one of the things that they're careful enough to do is to make sure that we don't see the thing that disturbs us. Well, one of the things that really disturbed me was that the amount of blacks that are there in the country that are being, watch this, are being racially discriminated against, but the news don't cover it. What's happening with the blacks? Now you probably don't know that because you probably haven't done all the research. But the people that live there that are of color, those individuals are being put back to the back. The rides, if they're walking, they don't get no rides. Those individuals, when they get to the train station, they don't get to get on the train. Those individuals, when they get there and they start handing out rations, they get the back of the rations. And I begin to wonder if all this is going on and so much tragedy is happening in your life, what time do you have to take out and be prejudiced against somebody else that's going through the same thing? At some point in time, some tragedy should wake you up and make you realize that you're going in the same direction, and the same thing that's happening. Heaven should be our goal. Woo! I heard this one black student say, he said, we've been pushed to the back. And what we're told is that one of us can abort after 10 others. Which means that for every 10 people that get on the train, one black. The news not telling us those things. Because what they know is if they put all those things out, then over here in this country, we'll start seeing it from a totally different perspective. Because see, the thing that we need to understand is if heaven is our goal, then what we need to be worried about is our souls. Don't get so caught up what's happening to the body. Get caught up with who can destroy the body and soul. So therefore, I'm going to do the right thing. Watch this. No matter what they're doing to me, my conditions may change. Watch this. But my aim is still heaven. Yeah. Even in situations of life, we find that people are still not aiming toward heaven. One of the things I want you to understand about life is about where your target is, and watch this, and where your goal and aims are. And what Christ is the one that make the adjustments in our lives. And so if we're firing toward the target and we're off just a little bit, he takes our aim and moves in and adjusts it and make it hit the target. Why? Because he's already filled in for us. And so therefore, what he was telling these individuals there in that particular day, and what he was letting them know that if I shut up heaven, where there be no rain, if I cause the pestilence, y'all hear what I'm saying, to enter to my people, if I cause the locusts to eat up everything, then watch this, there's some things that you need to do. You need to stay focused on me. The end game should not change. At the death of my father, at 14 years old, I want you to understand, I looked at the situation of life and I wondered, how is this woman going to be able to make it when the oldest of us is about 17 and the youngest of us is 1.5? And how is it that we were going through what we were going through with the father and mother? Now we just have a mother on the journey in which we were going on, and their goal was to rear 10 children. Well, I watched how this one particular woman, my mother, she stayed focused on the same path, and she stayed focused on the goal. And her goal was with my father to rear 10 children. And after my father passed away from a car accident, guess what? My mother's goal didn't change. And because my mother's goal didn't change, here at the greatest church in the world, good God Almighty, you have a pastor that has come out of a situation where that was created, that my mother, my father didn't create, but it was created by God, and he allowed us to be able to be here in spite of the difficulty, in spite of the situations, in spite of the pitfalls, in spite of all the things that we didn't have, in spite of all the places that we couldn't go, in spite of all the opportunities that we didn't have. God still allowed this lady to rear 10 children in spite of all the difficulties. Why? Because heaven was her goal, and her goal was to rear 10 children. And her prayer was, I'm so glad I had a praying mama. Her prayer was that my 10 children get to be adults, and God answered all her prayers. I come to let you know, if you keep focused and stay on the right track, woo, and keep heaven as your goal, you'll get to the promise that God has for you. I can assure you, she had some difficult days. I can assure you, she had some sleepless nights. I know for a fact she had some times when things ran out, but she stayed focused. See, the thing that we need to understand is nowadays people can't hardly rear one child, but here it is, with the help of the Lord and with God on your side, she brought 10 children. Not one has ever been to jail. Not one has ever been to juvenile. Not one has, good God Almighty, taking things that don't belong to them. Why? Because it was her goal. Shouldn't it be the goal of people today to be assured that their children get in? The last conversation I had with this great lady of God on this side, in person, here's what she said. I just want to make sure that I get in and that all 10 of you all get in. And I've done everything that I could before you all to make sure that she was an example for us, that we could see good in a person, in spite of the situations of life, in spite of what the downfalls, in spite of what you lose, in spite of that what you don't have. And so I thank God there was an example that God put before me that was an example of an individual that was going through the storms and the rain, that was having heartaches and pains, but stayed focused on God. Life is not going to always go your way. It can start out bad, and it can stay bad, but heaven should be your goal. It can start out with difficulty, and difficulty could be the landmark of your life, but heaven should be your goal. It could begin in a difficult situation. It could have in the middle difficult situations, and at the end of your life could be difficult situations, but you have to look past all the molehills. You have to look past all the curves. You have to look past all the pitfalls. You have to look past all the difficulties and make heaven your goal. The motive with life is to make sure that your compass is set right. The motive of life is to make sure that your focus is focused right. That's a short movie that you need to watch, and it's called God's Compass. And in this movie, God's Compass, one of the things that it does is it brings out a difficult situation for 2 young children. It brings out a difficult situation for a husband of a young man who wants to be a doctor. It brings out a difficult situation of this young man who had a child, and the child has difficulty in birth. And the man's father, the doctor's father, who now is a doctor, the young man is a doctor, and his father has now gone on to glory. His father's prayer was that he get to see his son graduate and become a doctor. During this time, his kidney began to fail. And when his kidney began to fail, in order for him to live to see his son graduate, he had to have a kidney. During the time when he was in need of a kidney, a woman and a man, a husband and a wife, was driving through an intersection, and a car hit their car. And the husband and wife lost their lives. And the kidney of the husband went to the man that needed a kidney to survive, that he could see his son graduate. Time moves on. Now the son has graduated and became this great doctor. Now his wife is pregnant. And when his wife is now pregnant, on her way to the hospital, she needed some help. She was driving herself to the hospital because her husband was at work. And as she was driving her way to the hospital, she got to a place where she couldn't go any farther. Now, on that place she couldn't go any farther, and buildings that were abandoned, she stopped her car because the pain would not allow her to move. At that particular time, a young boy walks up to her car and attempts to break in. When he gets inside the car, he finds her inside the car in labor. She tells him, I need your help. I need you to drive me to the hospital. Watch this. He began to tell her that he can't. She said, but I need your help. He had a sister that was standing behind him. He looks at his sister. He tells his sister to go home. He gets in the car and drives this woman to the hospital. Y'all are hearing what I'm saying. And when he drove the woman to the hospital, she made it just in time to save her life and the baby's life. The baby went through difficulty. She recovered from the giving of birth. And that the baby had to stay in the hospital, the police arrested the young boy because he was a car thief there at the hospital. Somebody seen him, identified him, and arrested him. She told her mother-in-law that if somebody drove me to the hospital, it was a young boy, and I don't know who he is, and I want you to find him, and I want you to let him know how much I thank him. The mother went and found him, and when she found him, he was in jail. I'm just giving you difficulties of life. When she found him, he was in jail, and she began to befriend him while he was in jail. The judge made it difficult for him to get out. Over $100,000 for being a car thief as a bond. He said, I'm going to make this as difficult as possible. She mortgaged her house off to get him out of jail. The first day she brought him home, he ran away. I'm talking about the difficulties of life. He ran away because he went looking for his sister. His sister was a lot younger. When he went to the place in which they lived, he couldn't find his little sister. And he took days looking for his sister. By now, the marshals come looking to see where he was because they said they were going to inspect the house. When they arrived there, the mother had to let him know he's not here. He's gone. And he's been gone. See, the difficulties of life keep on getting worse. And therefore, when he couldn't find his sister, and he found his way back to this woman's house. Together, they found the little sister. When they find the little sister, they arrest him and put him in jail because he had now to serve time. In the meantime, this mother, who had accepted him in, who was also mother to the doctor, she began to do some research. What she found out was that she kept praying to God, why is it that I have such an interest in this young man? Why am I drawn to him? Why is it that now that he's going through all this, I'm still drawn to him? And what she found out was this young man's father had died in a car accident that saved her husband. And when she found out that this young man's father had died in the car accident that saved her husband, she became more intense to want to find him and want to reach out to him. And so now, in the meantime, her son, watch this, baby is now released from the hospital. And the young boy and the young girl now need somebody to adopt them. I don't have to tell you who adopted them. Watch this. As you go through the pains and the agonies of life, God got a plan for you. And as you go through the pains and the agony of life, God has already worked your situation out. Why are you trying to figure God out? God has already worked your situation out. What God did was God took the same family that had taken the kidney and put it inside the husband, gave the husband a few more years, gave the children a few years to grow, and now this particular same folk became a whole family. Here they are in the family of the family that took their father's kidney, that gave their father extra years to live. Now here they are being adopted by the same family. Don't you know that God's working your situation out? No matter how bad it may look, no matter what it is that you're going through, God's working your situation out. And so what God God is telling the children, y'all hear what I'm saying? Solomon, there in those particular days, what Solomon did was Solomon began to pray, and Solomon began to pray and seek God's face. Solomon was one that was David's son. Solomon was one that was trusting in God. Solomon was one that upheld his, y'all hear what I'm saying, his father's standard of living and what God told him. Good God Almighty, if you do the right thing in this place, I'm going to continue to bless you, and I'm going to bless this place. God, hear what I'm saying? And for my name's sake, because of what God has done for Solomon, he's going to do for all of Israel. And what Solomon prayed for was, I'm not praying for strength. I'm not praying for power. I'm not praying for riches. I'm praying to have the ability to lead these people. And what God did was God gave him the wisdom to lead God's people. And so therefore, when God began to speak to him, God began to speak to him in this manner. If my people, which are called by my name. See, the thing we need to understand is just the word if within itself is a conjunction word. And because it's a conjunction word, it lets us know there's a condition junction. It's a condition. If you do what you're supposed to do, I'm going to bless you. Y'all hear what I'm saying? If you do what you're supposed to do, no matter what conditions happen in your life, I'm going to bless you. If you do whatever you're supposed to do, I'm going to give you many days. I'm going to bless your life.